Smith from Just Means. I'm here at the 2010 Sustainable Agricultural Partnerships Conference in San Francisco. I'm joined by Kim Callis, who's Vice President of Ocean Grown Solutions. Kim, thanks for joining us.
You bet, Martin. Thanks for the opportunity to talk and share what's going on.
So tell me first, who you are, where you're coming from, and why you decided to get involved with Ocean Grown.
Well, my background was with a large food company, actually the sixth largest in the world, General Mills. And I retired a year ago. And at that time, I was completing about 5 years worth of work with their global sustainability initiative. What that really was about was shifting consciousness in large degree of what is essentially a marketing company, and a very good one, and bringing not only product within North America but globally. They actually have a joint partnership with Nestle's. So all the cereal produced by Nestle's is actually produced by General Mills, and that's distributed worldwide. And that experience, though, really gave me an opportunity to give much more time and effort to understand what sustainability really is about. So knowing that ultimately for the food processing industry, it's about creating healthier for you foods, I wondered what we would really do about that. And I set about some initiatives within General Mills that led to joining the Global Reporting Initiative, and set about creating global standards for not just healthier for you foods, but overall the entirety of what constitutes a sustainability report or corporate social responsibility report. But you can look that up at globalreporting.org and sector supplements and the food processing group. What I came away with, though, right at that time, because I was considering an early retirement, was it's really about the inputs, the agricultural inputs. The stronger they are, the healthier you can make the initial product. Then it gets mixed in so many different ways, right, with different textures, either from a cultural aspect or just resource aspect, by any company around the world. If you have healthier food to start with, I think you're going to change the way people live and hopefully make it a healthier life for them. So that's where I came to Ocean Grown. Ocean Grown has actually been around 8 years in the making, and they essentially have a process, proprietary process, go out to open ocean area. This is several hundred miles off the coast, so you're avoiding coastal pollution, and the salinity of coastal water is much different. Open ocean, low salinity,
lots of plastic.
Rich. You avoid the plastic areas, right, Marty? You've been reading about that. That's a reality. But we're certainly not harvesting that. What we do harvest are virtually all 90 elements on the periodic table, and some very beneficial microorganisms that are able to fix nitrogen. That means taking nitrogen out of the air and putting it into NH3, which is a type of ammonia that feeds the plant, the food and begins the feeding process. What we believe is unique about our process is because it's a concentrate. We're not just hauling water around, but it is in solution. It's about 100-to-1 dilution rate for most home plants, and if you're in the horticulture or want to take care of your lawn responsibly, you can do that. Then we have agricultural scale implementations of our product, and that's why I'm here at the Sustainable Ag Conference.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, if you guys are fixing nitrogen, you're doing that through Fritz Harbor, right? Fritz Haber, and you're still using natural gas, right? To fix
No. The process is all just marine fuel, diesel.
Okay.
So I can measure. I know what the embedded energy is in the production of our process. It is way magnitude order lower than conventional nitrogen.
Right. Cool.
No, fixing nitrogen actually happens in soil when you apply it.
Yeah.
And we can do in row, as you're planting that. We can do foliar and other broadcast methods of getting it on the plant. Some farmers think we're actually a fungicide, but we're not. What we do create is what we believe is an opportunity for the plant to really be successful in taking up the nutrients that it needs. Here's, for instance, tomatoes will take up 56 different elements if they're given the opportunity to have 56 different elements. Problem of today's tomato, which hopefully most people would agree, I think they would. They don't taste like anything.
They do in Europe. They do in Europe. They don't here.
And there's a reason. There's a reason, because they are actually delisting a lot of the chemicals that normally would have gone into tomato production, and they've been doing that for several years. They delisted several hundred, actually. That the synthetic approach is not as good as the natural, but the natural has to be a full complement of what the plant really wants. In this case, 56 elements.
Right.
What's going to deliver that? Well, we have almost 90 elements. The micronutrient, that's the inorganic side. We also have the organic side, that I mentioned, the microorganisms that are biologically able to do this thing of fixing nitrogen, but also fixing carbon. There's a great deal of science behind it, and we're researching it ourselves even further. We have Dr. Mitchell Sogan at the Marine Biology Lab in Woods Hole, Mass, who's really kind of stunned the world when he said a few years ago that the biodiversity of the ocean is probably a factor of 10 greater than we ever realized. He used a rapid DNA sequencing analysis that enabled him to not only look at the phytoplankton levels in a liter of ocean water, but the gut flora of those phytoplankton, so inside that. So within that universe, he found there's usually about 26,000 different microorganisms living in 1 liter of ocean water. So that science has enabled us to understand more. In fact, he's researching, because his background's in food science, come to find out, he's researching our product as we speak, and I should begin to report within a week what we actually have in the way of the listing of some 26,000 different microorganisms.
So tell me, one quick follow-up question. Tell me what you're hearing at this conference. Is it?
You bet. This is actually the third. I may be a unique partner here, or a participant, but I wasn't just a participant. I was the keynote breakfast speaker at the Chicago Summit, and then also led some of the workshops in Chicago. Prior to that, there was one in London. I wasn't able to make it because I was doing work with the GRI, actually in Paris at the same time. But then the earliest one, or the first one, was in New York, and I made that one. And I'll tell you, there's been a bit of an evolution here. The one that I really resonated with was the first, and I did in Chicago for 2 different reasons. The one in New York talked very clearly about the difficulty of doing life cycle assessments. At that time, there was no global standard. There's something called PAS 2050 through the British Standards Institute that does a very rigorous and could become the global standard. It's not like the WRI standard for doing your water footprint, or carbon rather, but it's getting there, and that still is, by the way, probably the primary reason for doing LCA is to figure out your carbon footprint, which misses a lot of other opportunities, come to find out. General Mills sent me to some of the world's leading institutions, the University of Zurich being one of them, and a group out there called EcoInvent that has a global database that the UN is envious of, and actually the UNEP group has brought in a lot of this. But managing the data pieces for life cycle analysis requires something very, very special. I was hoping to hear a little bit more about that here. They're shying away from it. In fact, I asked one a presenter from Mars a very direct question: what's the value of having done this life cycle assessment? And I actually hemmed and hawed a little bit, going, well, we did it. But where do you go? Do you use it for a strategic shift? Do you use it for, comparing 3 different product lines that you want to consider? And because of the life cycle impact, you're going to shift from one to the other. And that's where it should go, and that's where it can go. To be honest, I did meet a gentleman here from VSF. They have one of the world's best tools to actually analyze your corporate social responsibility in a life cycle analysis type manner. And I don't want to get too complicated or convoluted on discussing that, but BASF has one of the world's leading one. It's all Excel based, and it's easy to understand. They train people over a period of several weeks, and once you're trained in that, you're now kind of able to make sure that the data that comes in to your corporate social responsibility report is valid, and it's based on a type of life cycle analysis process within your product categories and product range. But I was hoping to hear more about that. I haven't. What I have heard is that there's initiatives underway to deal with issues that the nitrogen type fertilizer, which is typically a fast release fertilizer. So Georgia Pacific, for example, has an enhanced oh goodness, I'm slipping on their name, but it's a process that's a slow release nitrogen. And they showed this great video of it that's for educational purposes, but you can see the effect of conventional nitrogen being applied is zooming off away from the roots because it just doesn't have the staying power. So you want something that has a natural setting in the soil. So in a way, they were actually kind of promoting the use of a biological fertilizer. Nice. I mentioned that to them; they weren't too happy. But
what percentage of the U.S. market is biofertilizer versus kind of?
Oh goodness, it's really this is the next thing. Yeah, a gentleman from Davis here, AgriQuest, Dr. Ashish Malik. Great presentation. They're focused on biopesticides. Same argument. We have not considered the value of biological processes. We've run way too fast, I believe, and tilted too far into the synthetic approach to doing agriculture.
Synthetic meaning oil-based.
Oil-based, chemical-based, right. We're breaking that apart. And, I have no issues with the good genomic testing as to what, in transgenomic, what genes get turned on or off by a natural process. I do have concerns about GMOs. I do have concerns about artificially or using the best intelligence that we have to figure out how you nix something into a better position. Usually the GMOs are trying to overcome the fact that we've had bad fertilizer going into the soil for so long. They want to make corn more nutritious. I had this discussion at the Farm Progress Show last year, a gentleman from Pioneer, and they said, oh, and we're really close to making a seed that can take up nitrogen better. And I go, well, that's because you're
fixing the wrong crop.
That's right. So
Band-Aid on a gushing food.
Yeah, exactly. So.
All right, really interesting stuff. We got to finish this up.
Sure.
But Kim Callis again, who is Vice President of Ocean Grown Solutions and worked at General Mills prior to that, and general expert on sustainable agriculture here at the 2010 Sustainable Agricultural Partnerships Conference in San Francisco.